I know that Mike Johnson thinks that Donald Trump is stupid, but I didn't expect him to say it so clearly. And that is what he did this morning. Because Donald Trump is making it increasingly more difficult every single day for Republicans to defend him, and especially Mike Johnson, who is terrified of losing his majority not in the midterms, because we know that shellacking is happening. But before we even get there, we're going to get into what Mike Johnson had to say about Donald Trump and one of his new ideas, if you can even call it that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Johnson had to say about Donald Trump, one of the most blatant attacks we've seen yet, which don't come very often from Mike Johnson, I want to start with how Donald Trump created the animosity between him and his little puppet speaker with an announcement about credit cards and a law that doesn't exist that he thinks does.
Because we have a total stiff at the Fed.
Do you have any, can I ask you, the announcement on the cap on credit card interest rates
Yeah.
that came out on Friday, what happens if the credit card companies don't comply by the January date?
Well, then they're in violation of the law.
And do you have congressional
Very
support?
severe things. No, I want a cap on credit card interest rates because, you know, some of them are 28, almost 30%. And that people don't know they're paying 30%. The people out there, you know, they're working and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way. We're putting a one-year cap at 10%, and that's it. They know it.
Is that something
They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Now, is it outrageous that banks make 30, 40, 50% margins off of outlandish credit card interest rates? Absolutely. Is Donald Trump the one to solve that problem? Absolutely not. Donald Trump has no interest in solving these problems. Donald Trump has no interest in making things more affordable. Donald Trump has no interest in taking on Wall Street. Donald Trump is the most bought and paid for politician we have ever seen. Like, let's be real. Miriam Adelson gave Donald Trump $250 million and is pledging to do it again for an illegal third term. So he would let gambling and, of course, Israel run wild. Donald Trump is bought and paid for by all the guys on Wall Street, all the tech billionaires. He asked the oil lobby to give him $1 billion in exchange for whatever they wanted. And what's happening right now? Donald Trump is not going to put a cap on credit card interest rates. Let's make that very clear. And if he cared about fraud, if he cared about banks or other big financial institutions taking advantage of consumers, maybe we still have the CFPB, right? Maybe we would still have protections for flight cancellations. Maybe we'd still have protections against junk fees. But we don't have that because Donald Trump is fundamentally disinterested in doing anything. Which is why it is so outlandish that he's pretending he's going to take on this very noble fight. It would be a good fight. Elizabeth Warren had the same thing to say, and maybe it's the reason that Mike Johnson responded.
Talk about.
Well, we talked about, remember, Donald Trump had raised this question early on about putting a cap on credit card interest rates. And I had said at the time when he announced this a year ago, I had said, great. I had been proposing that for years. Let's do it. And what's Donald Trump done since then? Nothing. And while I had a chance to talk to him, I raised the question of how we reduce housing costs. We've got a bill that has passed the Senate unanimously to expand the supply of housing, but Republicans over in the House have hung it up. And Donald Trump has not lifted a finger to get that bill passed on through. Look, what I talked about this morning is the importance of Democrats fighting to lower costs. And for me, that's what this is all about. That's what the conversation was all about.
Now, Elizabeth Warren, who fought harder than anyone else to protect the CFPB from Donald Trump and Elon Musk attacks. And mind you, Elon only went after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, not because they were committing large-scale fraud and the government blow. It's because, of course, those are cops on the beat, monitoring his legal business activity and practices. And what a surprise that is, Elon abusing the government for his own benefit. But Elizabeth Warren could actually get this done A progressive Democratic president could actually get this done. But Donald Trump is not going to. I do not think we should entertain this as a realistic idea. I do not want to give Donald Trump credit for something that he is not going to do, especially when Republicans are already pushing back against him. Now, there's some cultists who always fall in line, and their attacks on Kamala Harris proposing a similar idea kind of have bitten them in the ass, although they don't care about the hypocrisy. But I was most stunned to see Mike Johnson respond and essentially call Donald Trump an idiot.
Rates as a part of an affordability push. How much support is in your caucus for that?
I talked with him about it briefly yesterday, and he is the president is the ideas guy, and what he's doggedly determined to do and laser focused upon doing is the same thing that we are, and that is reducing the cost of living, bringing down prices for the American people, and he's looking at every idea under the sun to do that. It's one of a large menu of ideas that have been proposed as something we ought to think about and investigate. Since I had the conversation with him, I've talked to a number of colleagues about that and what that would mean, and are there unintended consequences of that? And it's a complicated area. So I don't know. Like everything else, you would need legislation to do something like that, and we'd have a lot of work to build consensus around it. But you got to be very careful if you go forward in that. In our zeal to bring down costs, you don't want to have negative secondary effects of that. So, for example, one of the things that the president probably had not thought through, and others at first glance, it sounds great. We should bring down, interest rates to 10%. It would help everybody, all borrowers. There's a lot of Americans who have a lot of credit card debt. But then, what some of the experts have said is, well, but the problem is if you do that, then the credit card companies, the negative secondary effect is that they would just stop lending money, and maybe they cap what people are able to borrow at a very low amount, and then that would have a negative effect on a lot of people who...
January 6th, pedophile protection, illegal wars, and war crimes. Just naming 3 things that Mike Johnson could have gotten upset with Donald Trump for. But no. It was going after the nice, fat, juicy margins of banks that's what really gets under his skin. And Mike Johnson saying, well, they'll just stop lending money. They'll just ruin the credit card industry. Dave, first of all, I don't think that's the case. That isn't the case. But for Mike Johnson to first be challenging Donald Trump first time in a long time rarely ever does. Because again, he is a puppet. I don't want to specify where the hand goes with Mike Johnson. There have been some grinder allegations floating around with Magic Mike over there. But this being the first time that Johnson is willing to challenge Trump is so funny. It's like I was fine with pedophilia. I was fine with pedophilia cover-up. I was fine when we were, blowing up innocent fishermen off the coast of Venezuela. Like, all those things are fun. But if you're gonna go after banks, then Mike Johnson, he's gonna step in. The Christian that he is going to step in. Because we know, if there's one thing that the Bible tells us, it's that the wealthy, they are God's chosen children. What was it? They easily escape into heaven, right? Nothing about camels. Nothing about the camels. Nothing about the eye of a needle. No. There was nothing about that in the Bible. Mike can't recall at this point in time. Of course he can. But for him to be challenging Donald Trump on that is just absolutely hilarious to me. Especially when Trump today, who is in Michigan trying to tout his economic agenda. And it's not the fact that Donald Trump is artificially ramped up inflation with idiotic tariffs that he uses to make himself more money. And that's the case. Donald Trump uses tariffs as a tool to solicit bribes from world leaders. Like, that is the whole of it. That is the only actual use case. We lost 65,000 manufacturing jobs last year. Why tariffs? But what did tariffs get us? A crown for Donald Trump? Some Big Macs? I don't know. The Swiss government gave him a nice little gold Rolex clock. That's about it. That's what we got. Donald Trump got a gold clock, and then he cut the tariffs on Swiss imports. That's the point of the tariffs. Let's be clear. It's all vanity for Trump. Much like with Greenland. Another thing that Mike Johnson called him out for, surprisingly.
considering that. I mean, it's not been in any briefing I've been in, and I go to all of them. Okay, it's not. This is not a. I think this is a media narrative that's been created. I do.
Wow. Who told Mike Johnson he was allowed to have an opinion? I think it's funny that Johnson signaling to Trump of, like, please don't do this flip. I'm begging you, as it would be so bad, is from to be like, well, no sane person would ever do that. You know who you are working with, right? It is still Donald Trump. Mike's like, well, that no reasonable person would be saying that it'd be idiotic to invade Greenland to put boots on the ground. And the Trump's like, we love boots on the ground, and we love the boots and boots, the house down and boots, and they're wonderful boots. How big are the boots? Where are they? And then Mag is like, can we lick the boots? We love to lick boots. Is that a billionaire's boot? I'd love to lick that boot. That's my Mag impression. It's also Trump, but Mike Johnson being like, we're not going to do that dumb shit. Mike, that the dumb shit is exactly what you do. That is what you do every single day. He doesn't even believe Trump. I don't even know what Mike Johnson's objective is at this point. Like, it's hard to try to figure the political calculation of this man. I think he's mostly just worried about a Republican resigning. He's just worried about another Republican. He should really be worried about a tough flu season, which I need to get a shot. That's a good reminder. That's a good reminder that I should get a flu shot. You should get a flu shot too. But Mike Johnson is just worried about someone resigning, and he's just trying to keep it all packed together, and everyone happy. And don't get all riled up. Don't get mad at me. Come on, please don't get mad at me. But they should. What sane person wouldn't? Mike Johnson is letting the Congress be stepped over, completely disregarded. And Donald Trump is using that, I don't know. Welcome that to violate our Constitution and to put us all in harm's way. And Jason Crow, one of the best members of Congress, specifically calling out Donald Trump on the warpath, said this right here, totally ripping into
Trump, bang the war drums and pound their chests in Washington, D.C., and talk about sending troops into the ground or into combat. He's not talking about his kids. He's not talking about all of his minions' kids. He's talking about kids like me and the people that I grew up in working class areas, rural places around the country that have to pick up rifles, jump into tanks or helicopters and do this.
We do not need boots on the ground in Greenland. We don't need to give Greenland. We don't need Greenland. If it's for the strategic territory, maybe help Ukraine. I don't know. I can't even. It's hard to argue and listen to these people all the time. Good for Jason Crow, though. Kidskill, a member of Congress, is. I should be more respectful. That's okay. Jason's a nice guy. And we are gonna continue to call Trump out alongside him on this show every single day. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let him silence you. Until next time, I'll see you soon.